Hello Booktube, this is Lena from Lukunurkka. I thought it would be a good idea to show you kind of overview what kind of books I read, so you can decide if the kind of books that I read are interesting to you. And since it's the end of the month, I thought the timing was quite appropriate for this. But I'm gonna do this differently than I plan to do my normal wrap-ups. I plan to have 5 books per wrap-up, otherwise the size of the video and the amount of details I want to put in is too small. So this time I'm going through all the books really fast, so yeah, these are not regular reviews. But this is what it is. I hope you enjoy. So these are the books I have been reading this September. The first book I read this month was a graphic novel, Are You My Mother? A Comic Drama by Alison Bechdel. And the book tells about writer's complicated relationship with her mother. And this was really heavy, and most of it went right over my head because it used lots of references to psychology and books and writers I haven't heard of, I haven't read, but it was good. So the next thing I read was Aavikon tyttäret by Nura Farah. It hasn't been translated, but the translation of the name would be Daughters of the Desert. And this was a story about the Somali girl who had to grow up, having most of her family died before she really knew them. Both her father and her brother, so it's just 2 women, she and her mom. There was a lot of telling how hard it was to be a woman in that society. Then I read few non-fiction books. I read Prosenttijengit, moottoripyöräkerhot ja järjestäytynyt rikollisuus Suomessa by Mika Mölsä. The book was telling about motorbike gangs in Finland, the history, how they came here and all the stuff. I just picked it up on a whim from the library. It was okay, nothing special. And then I read Valon varjopuolet, valosaaste ympäristöongelmana by Jari Lyytimäki. The name would be kind of like Shadows of Light, and it tells about light pollution. And this is relevant to me because of what I study. I study geography, so this is kind of subjects I'm interested in. Actually, I knew a bit about this stuff, but I only heard presentation about it, not read any books about it. So I was like, I dwell a little bit more on the subject. This was not a class read. So then after this I was like, I want to read some fantasy. So I turned to Patricia McKillip and got a beautiful book, A Song for Basilisk. I love her style, how mystical and poetic it is. And this was great, I loved it. So after that I was like, it's time to go to my list. And I picked up something that I have heard of, and basically I knew the plot because I've seen the movie. And this book in question was 2001, A Space Odyssey by Arthur Clarke. So for those who don't know, the 2001 goes around with the premise that in near future, well, now the date is kind of past, but anyway, in near future, where humanity is more advanced in space technology, we find a monolith on the moon. A black monolith that's clearly not made up by humans. So it's for us to figure out what to do with it, what it is, how we're gonna deal with that. And for that reason, they send a ship towards Saturnus. This was great. I thought the Basilisk was gonna be my favorite for the month. This was even better. The suspense, how the story grew bigger and bigger in the end. It was great. Totally deserving the spot on my classic list. Then I picked up something really fluffy. This was a Spanish book that I read in Finnish, but the English translation of the name would be The Altogether Unexpected Disappearance of Atticus Craftsman. And I like the Finnish name much better, which basically is it's a joy to drink tea with you, because it is much more relevant to the feel of the story, because this is light fluffy read. It's a romance, it's a contemporary, it's a group of women dealing with life, and this was by Maven Chances. So after that I was going in the library and I saw this book and I was, I remember that one, it has been on my list. So I picked up Paulo Coelho's Alchemist. The premise for this book is that this young man in Spain is kind of waiting for life and he wants to travel but he hasn't took the chance really. Then he gets a little bit of advice and he gets off to find his own life dream. And that's the start of this book. Now, I am not religious. I'm not sure if that's why it didn't speak to me that much. It was okay. I got what I got. Not as exciting as the Space Odyssey. This time, historic nonfiction. This was Jennifer Ward's called Midwife, a memoir of birth, joy, and hard times. Story of the poor side of London in the 50s, and all the way it was difficult and dangerous to give a birth to a child. So seriously, hats off to all of the women who were doing that work, because there were so many things that could go wrong with that. This was really interesting and easy to read. So I managed to get through Mrs. Dalloway and finished it on time, only to find out that and this time there wasn't many people discussing it. So fail on that front, but oh well. Since this is the first book I read after deciding to actually do these videos, I'm going to make a review of Mrs. Dalloway, but let me say that I appreciated it more than I liked it. So, the final book of the month. I was feeling a little bit shitty and I looked at my pile of books and I was like, I don't want any of that. So, I went to the library and walked towards the YA section and picked up the new book, well, new for me, Charmed Life by Diana Winne Jones. This was a really fast read. I have only read few books by Diana before, and this time I picked that was meant to a little bit too young people. I was like, it read fast and it got me out of the slump, but the characters were a little bit too one note for me. And for one, I come to realize that I like the Jonas style more than her plots or storytelling aspect. The ending always seems a bit rushed, and it always seems like all the threads that goes around the story get tied in too neatly and too fast. That has been my problem with other of her books, and I think this is the third or fourth one I have read by her, so I think this is her style or something. So yeah. But for what it is, it's witty, it has lovely details on it. Even though the characters were bratty, you would still be interested to seeing what they are going through, but only because the book is so short. If I had to sit through longer time of it, I would grow bored, but for the pages that they fill are filled quite nicely. So this is all I have been reading so far. I think this gives quite a good overview of my reading, and you can decide whether or not you would like to stick around, see what else I might do. So if you have any comments on the books I have read, you can always drop a comment down below. So I hope you see you later.